Okay, my name is Derrick Bell, CEO of Guerrilla Fitness and Athletics. I think the first thing that I would have to say, my own kids. Training them, wanting to see them succeed, wanting to see them get as close to their potential as possible. Just, wanting to ride the wave that they were riding in terms of, aspiring, to be great. But in the process, hoping that this was going to put them in a situation where they were going to get a great education. Oh man, I think probably now it's probably more important than it was even when I was younger. Just because I find so much in it that gives me the ability to tap into the youth. Of course, when I was coming up, the sports were there, but nothing to the magnitude of what is available now, in terms of being able to have someone that can kind of just give me the structure, the training, and the guidance as to, to tell me, where it is, what it is that I needed to do to get to the next level. I think that, I know for sure that was missing, when I was younger. Let me see. That's a really good question, Malcolm. Around 04, I think 03, 04 is when I started training kids that weren't my own kids. And I started taking it serious and really focusing on what it is that I could do for them from an athletic standpoint, and also help guide them into a situation that was going to help them from an educational standpoint as well, to the point where, because everybody has the D1 aspiration, right? But it's about kind of showing them that maybe, we're going to tap into your potential, and, D1, maybe we'll get a 1AA program. Maybe it won't be a 1A program. And I think that was something that I was able to provide through my knowledge base, and just continuing to tap into the people that were, that were kind of entrenched at the higher levels. People like yourself, having me train you, and consistently asking them what it is that they wanted. What were they looking for? Specific, detail. Give me exactly what you want. You know what I mean? As far as grades, you know what I mean? What he can lift, what he can, what he can squat. I want all of that. Give me the details so that I don't miss on our end, so that I can make sure that, when I send you to them, this is what you told me, and this is what he can do. He's not, he's not under the numbers, he's at the numbers or above them. So I think that it was just me constantly having, me coming in contact with youth, that I wanted to see them reach their potential. So I always made the phone call. I always sent the email. I wasn't afraid to ask or talk to anyone. And that's how I was able to, continuously just, foster the relationship. Guerrilla Prince came about because I read a book about Fidel Castro, who I admired, for a lot of reasons, but for one of the main reasons is that he was really about education. If you dig deep, you know, that's what he was about. He was, you know, his parents sent him to boarding school, you know, right there in Cuba. But that, you know, but education was why it is that he was such a prolific speaker. And so when I read that book and I saw, you know, where it is that he came from, and the name of it was Guerrilla Prince. It was like I just, you know, kind of took it and said, you know, this is, and I think in, you know, in the name, right? You know, guerrilla, you know, how I'm spelling it, it's a small tactical force, right? That takes what it needs in order to operate against a bigger force, right? And I think that can have so many meanings, especially for us coming from urban areas, right? And then Prince, you know, Prince, you know, because that's who I'm working with. I'm working with young princes, men of principle. So I think, so it, you know, it just in so many ways, of course, it has evolved over time because I find so much meaning in the name as, you know, as I get older. But initially, it was just because you know, I admired, you know, Fidel so much and what it is that he had done for the people of Cuba. Well, I mean, right now, I mean, we still have training. Training is everything. That's where we got started. And you know, right now we're developing in the MISS, which is going to be the non-for-profit part, where we're going to figure out ways for kids who can't afford training, who can't afford the cost of, you know, consulting for me to help them get into boarding schools, and just, you know, really help them with just different things, whether it's a SAT course, or SSC, you know, whatever, you know, they need a new computer. Providing that they're doing what they're supposed to do, we're gonna help you out. And then, you know, the combine is still there. GP the combine, I mean, I think that, you know, as I look at it now, you know, I've seen so many kids come through that, and they've wound up in some really great places. And, you know, to look at it and see like, wow, man, you know, that I remember that kid, you know, it's pretty fascinating because I never, you know, the goal was just to put something together to get a spotlight for you guys. That was really it. You know, and that's really more or less what I wanted to do because I'm from the Bronx, and, you know, I think being associated with the Bronx, you know, when you say the Bronx, you know, people automatically, you know, there's always that awkward silence, like the Bronx, like, oh, you know, and then, you know, you kind of go into, oh, well, I have a friend that lives in New York, right? So, I still want to continue to put a spotlight on the Bronx because I know that there's so much here if we can provide the platforms. I think the problem is that the platforms are not being provided. So if you don't have a platform, then now, yeah, you do have a kid that will find a whole lot of other things to get into. But if you have platforms, if you have avenues in which you can say, hey, man, you know, I want to help you out. I want to, you know, I want to change your whole trajectory in life, you know, because, you know, the way that you're going, it doesn't look good. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of it, but not enough of it. And I think it's easy to sit up, I guess, you know, in the ivory tower, so to speak, and point down and say what, you know, what's going on and what we're not doing right. But I think it's the commendable thing to come down and get with the people and say, hey, man, you know, let me help you out. Let me figure something out for you. You know, nah, you don't, you know, what do you need? Let me see if I can help you. And that's really all I ever wanted to do when I started when I had the whole idea of it. I didn't think that, you know, kids from the Bronx were getting training at a high level. I felt like they were, you know, they were getting training that was, you know, it was very cookie cutter, and it wasn't dynamic. It wasn't challenging. I mean, as you know, training with me is a task. It was uncomfortable, and I made it uncomfortable for a reason, because there were places that I wanted you to be. And so with that discomfort, with you guys becoming comfortable with the discomfort, I mean, I've seen all you guys, especially that particular group that was, I don't remember what summer it was, but that whole entire group, everybody is in college or has graduated college. So that's it. You know what I mean? Job well done as far as I'm concerned. And that's all I really ever wanted. For you guys to turn out and be men, that are honorable, And I'm not even going to say 20 years. In 10 years, if your kid is playing a sport at a certain level, and if you have not figured out a way to get training for them, then you're going to be behind the curve totally. In 20 years, it's going to be mandatory. It's not even going to be something that you can defer. Like, oh, I can't afford it. You better afford it like the mortgage. And if you want to be in the hunt, if not, then like I said, there's a whole lot of mediocre kids, But if you are truly trying to figure out how to do this and get to and even just ascending to the level of playing at the college level, D1, D2, D3, that now. Everyone can't fit at the D1 level. So the trickle-down effect is that you're going to have a kid that technically should be at the D1 level, but is probably at a D3 level, maybe because of grades. So now you have this kid there who has the potential to be at whatever, go to whatever league, whether it's NBA, NFL. And so the importance of having a trainer is, I don't know. I've always stressed it, but we always kind of find a way to figure out why it is that it's not important enough, or we find a way to figure out how it is that we can't afford it, and then when it's of the most importance, or when it's upon us, it's actually too late. Oh, I'm gonna get him the trainer the sophomore year of high school. No. How does he compete with the kid who's had it since the 6th grade? How does he compete with that kid? This kid has the footwork down, he understands speed, he understands stride. So how does he compete with that kid who, now you're teaching this to a 10th grader who now I have to undo a whole lot more. It's tougher. So the sooner, the better. If you can, look, I tell parents early on, if you have a young kid, 5th grade, let him do at least once a week with a trainer. Invest that, you know what I mean? And as he's developing, yeah, now that gives you the opportunity to find the money for the 2 days a week, and so on. And this is how it has to come along. But it can't be where I don't have it, but we have $400 phone posits on, right? So, I mean, because that right there, now it's a matter of priority. I can't stress it enough, because it's so funny, because just the other day I met some kid. He's probably going to commit to Louisville for football, and his dad told me that he's invested probably somewhere close to probably about 65 grand in training and nutrition for him. So now for some people that's a small fortune, but if he's invested 65 and he gets the full ride that's worth what? Over $250,000, I think we've done our job at this point, right? So, I mean, let's understand, there's going to be some investment. There's not, it's not going to be where we put in nothing and we go to Florida State. That's not how it happens. It's not. It doesn't happen like that for anybody. Even the ones that are the natural talents, there's some dues that they pay as well. So I think it's extremely important. I can't stress it enough. Yeah, that's I mean, because usually you can see what it is that they have, and then kind of an idea where they can go. And I think even if someone doesn't have necessarily the talent, but if they work hard, they can, they'll beat out the talent kid, because usually the talent kid, for some reason, always finds a way to rest on his laurels, right? Always. But it's always tough, that conversation, saying that maybe it's a high D2 for you. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not, maybe it's not a 1A. But like I said, I tell kids all the time, be careful what you wish for, because when you go to a 1A program, it's all business. It's all business. It's not, there's the fun, don't get me wrong, you're gonna have a good time, but for the most part, it's a lot of business. And some kids are really not prepared for that, because all they see is Sports Center. So if all you see is Sports Center, you've never done a practice with Nick Saban. You know what I'm saying? So you have no idea what it's like to do a practice with Nick Saban and realize that this dude is, he's like a warlord at practice. So and then you realize that yeah, for the most part, your academic life is really under duress, because everything is based around football, or basketball, for that matter, or whatever the sport is. I was just talking to a girl. She swims at Texas, and Texas probably has one of the top swim programs in the country, and she said she probably gets to class 3 times a week. The rest of the time, she's in the pool. So, I mean, just to give you an idea of what it is that you have to commit to once, because this is the level everybody aspires to be at. But I think, it's very, it's so fleeting, because if you do get there, it's really tough sledding. You know what I mean? Student athlete. Student is first, meaning that the academics are first. The day of the I guess dumb jock, or that's so over with. I said, you have way too many kids that are super smart and super athletic now. The dumb jock from 30 years ago couldn't even, today he would play nowhere, because he just wouldn't be able to hang, right? Because you have kids, just with technology, you have kids that are just so smart and so super talented. Academics is everything. Why do you think they have these filters for you? As far as these schools, they want you to fit into, because they want to continue to see who has it, right? Can he take this test and pass it? Oh, let me see if he can take this test and pass it, right? So it's the filters to see who it is, like who's the cream. And I don't know now that you can slip through the crack and get to a school and not really have, the intellect or, the academic ability to not just the academic ability, but academic, eliteness to some degree. You really have to be able to write a good paper. Just looking at what kids are learning now and where they're at academically, it's almost like, wow. For sure, I know I wouldn't have had a shot. I mean, it's no question. But I know that I wouldn't have had a shot because I was not prepared in that way. These kids are so prepared that, it's almost like, man, they're splitting hairs with them, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't have made it. It's no question. Like I said, but I definitely wasn't prepared in the same way. And I think that, you have so many, distractions back then as to, not there aren't any distractions now, but it's just a little different. I mean, I have to say yeah, because, because we are a city of so much. It's very hard for us to have the whole Friday Night Lights concept here, because the city is just too big. It's hard for us to have that concept. Whereas in Florida, you have towns that will shut down for a Friday night game. And it's just because they have that ability, and they're very supportive of the sport. And when you have a situation where people are, you have an entire community that is behind a high school or I mean, you see it every time you see someplace like, like the University of Florida or Florida State. Those are in relatively very small towns. You know what I mean? But those games are sold out. So it just goes to show you that the community is behind those games. You know what I mean? How many people go to a Fordham University game? And it's right here in the Bronx. So that right there shows you that, just because it is New York and there is so much going on, it's very hard for us to become that football kind of place, or, this is a basketball mecca still. But even with that, I think we've definitely slid down the ladder with that. We're not what we used to be from that standpoint. Why? Because now it is a situation where, the top basketball players were three-sport. They actually deferred to play basketball. I ran track and I did, and I was a tight end. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, then let me play basketball. I'll do that. So, and that is, that's kind of where that comes from. So, yeah, our infrastructure is not set up to have that. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, that we can't, get behind, like I said, you have Fordham University right here. I could count how many people are at those games, literally. You know what I mean? So it's like I said, it's community. I'm totally against the one sport guy. The one sport guy, if you have, you can't tell me that you have figured out at 9 that, that's it. This is all you're gonna do. Because there's so much that you have to learn. And the thing about it is that doing another sport is actually cross-training for your, for your main sport. I think that it becomes tough for kids to to have an understanding of that. They, you know, they lock in to the one thing, and, you know, I'm this, and then that's it. But playing multiple sports is not only going to help them from the standpoint of their body, but just from a, you know, just from a intellect standpoint, you know, because now you understand different critical situations, you know, in different sports, and that's helpful. That's very helpful. If you go to Goldman Sachs right now, and we go to the 19th floor of Goldman Sachs, all those dudes went to college, and they all, for the most part, played at minimum 2 sports, if not 3. Very rarely will you find a dude that he, you know, at 9 he played soccer and he played it all the way through. Nope. Because usually a parent's not going to let you do that. They'll be like, nope, you're going to play this. I mean, I know that's what it was with me. Nope, you're going to do this, and you'll do this, and you'll do this. Because there's no way for you to know that this is your thing. You know what I mean? If I put you in this situation and you flourish, now, is this your thing now too? So now it's just about continuing to, you know, kind of, and I think that what we do here, especially in the Bronx, I mean, because we're so, you know, because it is New York, you know, everybody is, you know, so we're so basketball heavy, right? So everybody, you know, wants to be a point guard. There's not enough teams on the planet for all the point guards that are here in the Bronx. So, you know, you definitely have to do something else. And it's just a matter of finding that something else. And if that point guard thing is truly you, then, you know, it'll filter itself out. It'll come to pass if it's truly you. But, you know, I definitely think that you always have to give other things a shot. Because if you don't, you know, you kind of trap your potential. Your true potential is trapped in just like you know, almost like a butterfly in a glass. It's just, you know, and eventually that will die out, right? Because you'll burn out from that one thing that you're doing because there's no change, right? So yeah, that's extremely important to do multiple sports. I just came off of a whirlwind week, actually, visiting schools. It's so funny talking to these admissions people at the different schools. There's nothing that they won't do to get a kid from the city to come up there, because they so want to show what it is that they have to offer. And they know that there's a disconnect. They don't have the liaison. So this is why they call me. They'll say, hey, Derrick, you know, I got a, you know, and I say, hey, I got a kid. I think you might, you know, and a lot of times, you know, I'm always sad when they call and I don't have a kid. Or I was like this early September, you know, the Fesden school called me, said they had a bunch of money, but I could not find, I called a lot of places, I could not find anybody that wanted to give up their 7th or 8th grader and send them away, and the school is 62 grand, and they were gonna have to pay nothing. So it's really tough to get people to, you know, to buy into it, you know. I think how we can change it is, you know, I do try to bring the schools down here so that you can hear it from the people at the schools themselves. I think culturally, us as a culture, as well as like, we just have this thing like, oh no, not my baby, I'm gonna keep him here, right? But the reality is once again, it's a situation where what you have to realize and recognize what it is that you're keeping them from. And this is why I always tell parents to go on visits. If you can, I tell every parent, I said, if you can go on the visit and tell me I absolutely don't want this for my kid. I don't want this. If you can do that, then okay. Then, you know, but there hasn't been a parent yet that I've sent on a visit that says, the first phone call I get is, how can we make this happen? But it's about having, you know, I had a good friend, really good friend, man. Well, he's still a good friend, but I tried to get him to send his son, and he was like, no, yo, he's like, I can't let him go. Phenomenal football player. And, you know, I said, I'm telling you, dude, like, it's going to change his life. And he couldn't do it. And like I said, I don't know what more I could have said as a parent look, I'm a parent. I've done it 3 times. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I said, I don't know what. Would I have to have done it 10 times for you to say, yeah, okay? But I don't think it would have mattered if it was just one time. I think it's just the individual. And like I said, I'll still bring schools down here and still have them talk to parents. And it'll get through to some parents. It'll get through to some of them, and they'll be like, okay, like I said, they'll go on the visits and realize, like, this is what I want. For kids from the inner city to have the exposure to a global situation, your roommate could be from Seoul, Korea, and you're from the Bronx. So now he tells you about Seoul, Korea, and you tell him all about the Bronx. And now there's a connection there. And this might be, this is not even college yet, but now you've connected with somebody that you'll probably be friends with for the rest of your life. So, and then, it's all about establishing a network, right? How do we establish our networks? We establish our networks through people that we know. I think that it's important because we need to, I call it like we should have $1 million network, meaning that we should have people that are in contact with $1 million or more, or have access to. And if we haven't done that, then we probably have not networked with the proper people, right? We've fallen short as far as, getting in, getting in the right space. So yeah, boarding for kids from the inner city it's essential. Yeah. Yeah, it's essential. It's something that I can't stress enough. I really can't. If I could send every kid, I would. Trust me, because like I said, meeting with advisors and administrators this week, and they've all emailed me already. Like, hey, all right, Derrick, keep us in the loop. Let me know. So yeah, it's important. Not necessarily challenging, because it was a challenge in the sense of doing something new. How can I get him to work harder? And the thing, it wasn't a challenge because I didn't treat him any different than I trained you. It was really no difference. You know what I mean? What I expected from you is what I expected from him. So there was no like I'm taking something off the curveball. No. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? I'm still demanding the same thing. So the challenge was really just with me being able to give him what he needed. That was, to make sure that I could see the progress and continue to see the progress. So, I mean, it was an ultimate experience for me because I felt honored to be able to do it, right? But I think doing it, really gave me, insight into a lot of things, right? Just me, like, personally, just appreciating what it is that you're born with, right? And, and just being able to have, the ability to walk, and I think we take all that for granted, right? And when you're with somebody who maybe that's a little bit of a challenge, you're like, oh wow, like I take that movement for granted, and that you know, he has a little bit of trouble with that. So more than anything, that it was something for me to be able to be a part of that. You know what I mean? So you know, each time I always had to, it always brought me back to being appreciative. More kids in boarding schools. Yeah, more kids in boarding schools. For the non-for-profit, we're trying to set up a gala, a dinner, where we do some fundraising, where we can send, not just, because I don't just want to send you to school. I want you to be able to get there, and I don't want you to feel left out in any way, because there is extreme wealth. I don't want you to feel like, don't call me up and say you need the Gucci loafers. We'll hook you up, but they can't be the Guccis. But, a nice blazer, whatever, things like that, a new Mac, I want to provide that. I don't want you to get there and feel any way. So that's really my thing, to be able to get you there. And if there's something that you need, if there's a class you're taking and you're really into it, you're in a photography class and you want to get a camera. We need to find a way to make that happen. Providing that you're doing what you're supposed to do there, we need to make that happen for you. Any kind of, extracurricular thing that, that you're trying to do, we want to foster that, So, yeah, so, in the midst, the gala, more combines. Right now we're in the process of trying to, just put together and just getting new equipment, update the equipment, with state-of-the-art stuff, and just, stay relevant, so that you don't have to necessarily see the state-of-the-art stuff on TV. You can actually come to a combine and we have it for you, right? I think that's important. We are working on our site, but I can be reached at GuerrillaPrinceAthletics.com. That's my email, and our phone number is 212-300-6659. So yeah, as we're, we're currently waiting on our 5013C status. So the donations, as soon as we get it, we're gonna need those donations, because we definitely want to. We definitely want to see kids in better situations. Young black men are still being locked up at an alarming rate, right? That hasn't stopped, that hasn't changed. And if I can, in some way, deter that by, getting a kid involved in sports and training and sending him off to school, or, and just getting him a whole different trajectory, that's what we're going to do.